local voices. And the archive, like it's so prominent. There's so many successful women in music and science and business and activism. And the local throughout is what struck me as incredibly important. And as we stand here at International Women's Day, throughout the series, women's fight for equality, for equity, rings through. And Mary is so conscious of this, and how she deals with it is quite subtle. In 1922, Esther Roper wrote to Hannah Skeffington, "Never has there been such a firm foundation and justice and freedom guaranteed by any other country of its women's citizens." That was after the vote was granted. Unfortunately, we know that is not how it played out for many women in Ireland in the coming decades. And while the work of women's history and gender history has done a lot to make women's lives visible, projects such as this are still so critically important. Breda Murphy was mentioned there, and I did not know about Breda's father, but the fact that Mary starts these editions with the Tuam Mother and Baby Institution, with profiles of Breda Murphy, Catherine Corliss, Christine Carroll, I think is really, really, really significant. As is President Michael D. Higgins' tribute to the work of Patricia Burke-Brogan, the writer of the play Eclipsed, based on her own experience in Galway's Magdalen laundries. And as I was reading through all of these editions, I realized very quickly that each edition, as Mary had done, was part of a conversation. So women in the first and second editions would reappear, and there was an intimacy in how their lives, their successes were presented. They were like old friends that I was staying in touch with as I was reading each one. And the sheer volume of research, the beautifully written journalism full of emotion and empathy and curiosity, the themes that were addressed, they all, feed into our knowledge of Irish social, political, economic history, the immigration, the discrimination, the marriage, the motherhood, the work in all its forms, many of it work that was not recognised, at least not economically, the friendship of the women, the art, the love, the passion, the influence of the musicians like Dolores Keane, the Whileaways. There was a quote said, "How can anyone not be a feminist?" The first female journalist to work in the Tuam Herald, Mary Fanning, artists like Olga Maglioka, who I just see in the crowd, Jennifer Cunningham, all still engaging so critically with the world we're in today. And I think the difference in how women view the world was pointed out by so many contributors. And Catherine Connolly said, "Women are often more to the point, quicker and more reflective." I'm making this comment as a TD. We have other things to do, such as rearing our children. So as we use more time, we use it more effectively. Society suffers because of its lack of women's voices. And many of the interviews demonstrated how reflective women could be. A common trope, the surprise that they were in the positions they were in after many years of graft and work. There are stories of emigration historically, Bridget MacDonagh, Irish connections to Boston in the 19th century, the presence of religious sisters, more radical sisters such as Sister Theresa Mee. Each edition builds on the next with an energy, and there's updates on the progress that women are making, but also the struggles that women were experiencing. And throughout, the word resilience just goes through your mind. The well-known biographies of some women, traveller women like Mamie Ward, sit alongside the stories of newly arrived women in Ireland. We read an interview with Ellen Mongan, the first traveller woman to be elected to an office in the Irish state. And there are so many creative women, I know many of them in the room, whose work are moving us and have moved us in so many ways. There are activists, local organisers, environmentalists, individuals serving their community every single day. And there's a beautiful line in the second edition from Mary J. Murphy saying, quote, "My mother used to say there is nothing new under the sun. It's all been done, said and felt before." And the intergenerational importance of these stories is probably the most significant piece. The daughters and the sons remembering their parents, their grandparents, and seeing a significance perhaps someone who wasn't a relative would not see. Now, I'm going to conclude, but Much of the work of Irish women's history from the 70s was to write women back into the historical narrative so they could rightly reclaim the spaces they occupied in revolution, in politics, in the domestic, as fighters, as thinkers, as breadwinners, and as confidants. As Judith Butler and Elizabeth Weed remind us, gender as a category never works alone. And today, Ireland has happily become more diverse, and our local and national histories have to reflect this. In the past, national history actively excluded, dismissed, and diminished the role of women in our revolution, in our economy, and in our culture. And the work of scholars have helped to retrieve this. But the work of local historians, and I don't even like the term local historians because it's almost derogatory, the work of those in the community who are retrieving these women and these stories and building this archive are, as Women Who Dared has done, connecting us to our past. And they're also encouraging us to be empathetic and understand experiences different to our own. The breadth of their work, many of these women in the room, from local organisation to international recognition, is a wonderful representation of everything Tuam and Galway has and continues to offer to the world. It's an honour to reflect on these achievements in a small way, and yet again to celebrate the work of everyone you have built up and put into your archive. Your stories can only illuminate how we understand the past and help us to continue to strive for equity in the present. Happy International Women's Day and well done.
Sarah, and I think that was an absolutely fitting, very brief, and I'm sure we could have actually listened to it for a lot longer than that, but a wonderful, wonderful accolade to Mary. Now, one of the wonderful things that has happened as well is that Sarah Ann has brought along her booklets tonight. So Mary's going to, Mary, yeah, so Tuam Herald has published them, and Mary is going to give them out to contributors in the first instance, and then we'll see what's in. Yeah. Let's take one, pass it on.
You are. Very sorry.
I have one already. Now, perhaps if somebody could help Mary give them out, Mary might be freed up to just say a few words, because you're next up, Mary, believe it or not. Just handing out a few of those different. But
I never heard of you. I remember this.
so I'm going to just keep going here, guys, and help our evening flow along a little bit. We have a few performances to come yet in the course of the evening, and we'll be probably finished up around 8. So don't think this is going to be you're going to have lots of time for chat and circulation and meeting and everything. So we'll just sort of stay in listening mode for a little while longer. So Mary Ryan, I'd like to invite you to come and talk about this magazine, what it means to you, and also.
Mary.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. As we've done in previous occasions, we're going to begin. I'm not going to keep you very long because I think Sarah Ann said it all so eloquently I couldn't possibly repeat it. But I'm going to start with a minute's silence in solidarity with the suffering of women all over the world. And we particularly remember tonight the women of Ukraine, the women of the Gaza Strip, all of the Palestinian women, the women of African countries, and all of the people who are among us here, all of our immigrants. We just want to say that we feel sometimes what you're going through. We couldn't possibly understand it. But I spoke to a friend of mine recently, a Ukrainian woman, and I said, do you go around with a lump in your stomach all the time, worried about what's going on? And she said, absolutely. She always has a smile on her face, but she goes around carrying this worry all the time. Her husband is in Ukraine, her mother-in-law, she's here with her 2 sons. And a number of Ukrainian people are here this evening, and I just want to salute you and say how brave you are, and thank you for the great contributions and talents that you're bringing to our society. So we'll take a minute's silence if that's okay. Thank you very much. 3 words come to mind when I think about my association with Women Who Dared, and that is humbled, honoured, and hopeful. I'm humbled by so many of you who have shared such stories with me, very intimate stories, some of which will not go onto the page. We've laughed together, we've cried together, and we've been angry together at the discrimination that women experience at the hands of the state and the church, and continue to do so. I'm honoured that you shared all those stories with me. And as Tom Gilmore, the journalist in the Tuam Herald, said, I am merely the conduit through which those stories arrive on the page. And I feel very honoured for that. But at the end of all of the stories, every single one of them, and some of them were harrowing, you'll see them, you'll read them yourselves, I was always left with hope. And I know there were 3 or 4 of you here tonight who've had very difficult situations. But I went away from you feeling I can cope with whatever comes into my life. Because you've done it. Mothers have suffered enormously, and yet they've continued to carry the hope and to contribute to their families and their societies. And I thank you for that honour. There are many people I should thank, but I'm not going to thank that many because you see it in the magazines. But there's one person that I have to mention, and it's Carmen O'Halloran from the Tuam Herald. Without her, the magazine simply would not exist. I merely got the stories. Carmen did every single other thing, apart from the cover and covers and so on. The designers of that. Actually, Colin did this year's cover, designed this year's cover. So I want to thank Carmel. She can't be here tonight, but we're thinking of you, Carmel. I also want to thank Breed Dooley, who got conned into doing this one night at a party. And she said, is there anything I could do for you for the next launch? And I said, yes, you could MC the whole evening. So and how professional she has been. As you all know, she's the head of archives at RTE. And she told me yesterday she had another launch on Friday. So while she's organising this launch, and she had me there until she had 2 minutes to speak, Mary. 3, including the minutes of silence. So I've already gone over, so I better watch my minutes. I want to thank you, Breed. That's really very nice of you to do it, and it saved me a lot of worry and anxiety. Sarah Ann Buckley. Again, I just sent her an email. I said, you can do me a favour, read the 5 magazines and write an article. And she said, yes, immediately. I'd be honoured to do that, she said. And she has produced a wonderful article. And you all have a copy of it, I hope. If you haven't, I'll make sure that you get it. Still a few here. So if you haven't been in the magazine and you haven't got a copy, there are a few left over. So I think The last people I want to thank are the 272 women in the magazine. Thank you for sharing your stories. It's very brave, and I thank you. And the contributors, there are 20 contributors this year. It was growing every year, but it had to stop at some stage. It has been an amazing journey for me, and it has changed my life and my future, really. Thank you very much, everybody.
Should have done some training in MC before I took this on. Running an archive was a little bit easier. No, I wanted to thank Mary as well personally because Mary profiled me a few years back, and then I found myself, much as Sarah Ann described, being sort of introduced into it in another way. And I think amongst us tonight there are many, many contributors who have that sense of community and conversation that Sarah Ann mentioned that we all got used to and got involved in, which was, bringing forward the stories of the women that we knew, that we felt hadn't been perhaps heard, seen, and I was delighted myself to I'll be introducing one of the profiled women this evening in a few minutes that I had the pleasure of interviewing this year myself. So we have, I would say, an embarrassment of riches in terms of artistry, performers, musicians, artists in this area, in the districts all around Tuam, people who have emigrated, people who've come back, people who've come newly into the community. It's just incredibly rich, and I think it's just something that Women Who Dared also represents extremely well. If you look back through all of the magazines that there have been so far, including women that have gone before who perhaps didn't get the accolades they should have in those days. So I'm very delighted this evening that we have some very eminent artists with us, and the first of these this evening is somebody most of you will know very well. She's kind of new to me, and I'm sorry that if you are new to me, because in a way, reading poetry is something that means a lot to me, and I'm dying to dive into your book at this point. But she's fated by many, and I was reading in the magazine that she's described in there as the reluctant housewife and an accidental poet. Interesting self-description, I hope. But also that the poet Seamus Heaney, when he was talking to David, the Tuam Herald, he was Tuam, oh, isn't that like Greenland? So I think when you get an accolade like that from Seamus Heaney, I think you're in very good hands. And Joan is going to come up and read one of her poems from her two poems from her new collection tonight, and she has a few signed books with her as well. And we'll try and see how we can divvy them out in the course of the evening to those who would like one. But anyway, Joan, would you like to join us?
I was trying to plug this into this, and I've been having upset. No, sorry, it's just I'm trying to plug this in. Right? Thank you very much. I know how you work. Let me try this. Thank you very much. Sorry, so
issue of Women Who Dare, and on the rather controversial matter of the reluctant housewife. For some strange reason, I've been talking a little bit about people about that aspect of my life. And it was when my number 6 of our 6 children went to school. I realised that with my husband is an industrialist here in the town, and half the time not even in the country, that the teaching job would have to go by the board, or the 6 children would be dragged up. But when the 6th one went off, I was left standing in my kitchen here in Tuam saying, what do women do in kitchens all day? I had a clue, and sometimes I think I still don't have a clue. But in a miraculous sort of way, the pen found me, or I found the pen. And then I found David Burke, Tuam Herald, and I have to give him the honour here. I presented him down at Tuam Herald office with a couple of my poems, and I asked him would he consider publishing them. And he said, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm Joan McBreen." And his response to that was, "Oh, right, you're Joe McBreen's wife." And I got well, and I said, "No, I'm that all right. And I'm also Joe McBreen."
There you go.
So, I'd like to thank David for that, that she gave me in the direction of the, what became famous later, the Global Writing Workshop. And the famous Jessica Denny, and all the poetry surrounded her, Rita Ann Higgins, all these names familiar, Moya Cannon, and all of these are people that became friends. And anyway, I've been invited to read a couple of poems, so I better do that. So thank you, Mary. Mary and I go back quite a long time also, in that we met at under the tutelage of the great Alfie Smith, and Margaret McCurtain in women's studies. And we knew each other not all that well, but we did know one another, and we were well trained, particularly by Alva. I'm going to read a poem called Much to Owe Me. And as those of you who know the West of Ireland and Connemara, Omey is a tidal island near Cleggan, and we go there quite often, and of course it was made famous by the great Irish poet Will MacNeice. Of course I'd have to come without my glasses. Homage to Omey. Yeah, okay. Thanks for reading. No, that's no bother. Homage to Omey. Afternoon sun on my back, irregular slap of water on rock, and then the skylark. Fine sand. Oh, shady, no glasses. Fine sand blown over the hippie top, over the lake. Thank you. Sorry about this. Over the lake. Over. Swans and the sound they make. Aquamarine, the colour of the sea. Nobody to say my name, no one to listen to me. Nothing to remember but the currents swell and shift and the island itself. Again, my head thrown back, my eyes shut. Clear music in the air and the smell of sea wrack. I've also brought a small number of my CDs, which were produced here in Tuam by the great recording studio with Kenny Reeve and the string quartet. The next poem, and the last one I read, is called At the Grave of Kate O'Brien. Was written extensively about by the late UCC academic Eva Walsh, who sadly died quite suddenly last year. And Eva particularly focused most of his academic work on Kate O'Brien and on Elizabeth Owen. In Faversham, on a bitter April day, birds fly over the wet stones and grass. 3 times we walk among the paths and graves and cannot find yours. It is your only need now, the sway of trees and secret meetings with tufts of time. But we have travelled here to leave without bringing you one spray of thyme and mock orange blossom. A sudden downpour pierced by shafts of sleet. We stumble on your headstone. It leaves It leans to one side in all its brokenness. One crow flies over the sky. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joey. That was absolutely beautiful and well done. Through that.
I was.
Yes, I'm going to invite another poet to follow that. And I think we're just really lucky and privileged to have two very eminent local poets in the room this evening. So I met Attractive for the first time, having found her poetry book in Hertford in a coffee shop and thought, oh my God, what is this? Because it just spoke to where I come from, which is small little farm in North Galway, and growing up in the fields and my life near a graveyard and all the rest of it, where I grew up. So we talked and talked and talked, and I just felt that her poetry just spoke in a way, allowed us again, I suppose, allowed me anyway, to think that, we could, that our own language, our own dialect, has a value that perhaps we sometimes overlook. And I think Attractive brings that in, literally in spades, because she digs a lot in it as well. So, Attractive, would you like to come and read a few of your poems for us? Thank you.
So much Breach and Mary and Sarah. Um, and everyone that was part of this, and I want to say it's thankfully privileged I am to be chosen to be included. It's a huge honour. I want to thank Breach for the interview because we had a gorgeous morning chatting about absolutely everything. So I hope I haven't let anybody else know to thank, but I'm very grateful to everyone. So and actually I'm it's a real pleasure to be here reading with Joan because I read Joan's poetry. It was very inspiring for me back in the 90s, long before I did a course in writing to learn the craft. So the first poem I'm going to read is I didn't know my father's father. I didn't know my father's father, but I knew his plough. Its remains leaned into the side wall of our barn, years growing in on itself. I imagine it's still there, a dull brown monument resting on grass. My granduncle used a horse plough. He sat on its high seat like a king disposed as he cultivated fields, later parked in an outhouse. My father's hand plough was kept in the shed. I watched him oil and grease it and preserved all year in preparation for spring. The plough's sharp sting of metallic glint in sun, the knife-edged double blades, curled, shaped in feminine curves, like a proud, strong woman. Watched him steer, hands clasped on bars, making a fist on the handles. His teeth clenched as if biting stone, meticulous eye and exactitude looking ahead. He cut line after line into the earth, slicing soil, row after row. The taste of supple mud in his mouth, each slice falling smoothly left, creating a furrow. I could smell the clay in the air as he put strength, focused his well on breaking the clogs, lumps, bumps, us with our spades clearing stones. I watched him battling in wobbles, sweat streaming his face, the power of a man working his plough, the wisdom of fathers before him. This was the way of our life, like worms, growing new heads for each season. My father knew ground must be prepared. Every beginning is joined to the end. What gives duration? The waves, cycles, how to cultivate and reap. Over our heads, a hood of crows picking chopped worms. Relieved to see they reinvent. Thank you. called Falling. Under my bedroom skylight, I rest in night's slow pulse. Heavy eyes follow patterns, a glass table of stars. Bear, plough, Pallades. From my garden, a thud, the last of the apples falling. A rustle of leaves as they plummet through air, drop one by one, sometimes in twos, threes, bump off the compost bins, rattling down before a final thump onto the pebbles beneath. All night, one after another they plunge. Half sleeping, I slip into dream. As a child, I didn't know life would be like this. Collecting apples after school, how tough to pull stems from a bowl, yet in the full blush of their own slow ripening, they snap from the branch and let go. And I'll finish with a poem called Color. I'm particularly fond of the witch energy. So I was trying to write about, well, what is the witch? How do we know her? Color. In August, after we brought in the hay, turf home, reeked in the shed, we settled in, wintered by the fire. Evenings playing cards, chess, reading, or listening to the radio. The wind took hold outside, clawed through sash windows, telling me to listen. Hailish to whom do you belong? Rain on the window pane shaping her face, not knowing who she was, yet knew she was a pulse in what called me, a throb in my body. Later, when I read words like crone, colloch, hag, I heard a name for the sound of twigs rattling on our roof, bellows of flames rising from the fire, crackle of ember, sparks spitting into the air, storm wheezing through the chimney, calling, calling. Very nice.
We've all been transported between Joan and Attractive. Thank you so much. Um, we're nearing, just coming to the sort of close of our launch this evening, and we're just going back now to a little bit of music. We have one of the youngest women who has been profiled in the book joining us here now to do the singing. Did you need to bring up the keyboard as well? Where's the singing? It's kind of up to yourself if you feel you're able to use it. So I think you're gonna, well, what I was gonna say about you is that there's a lot said in this magazine about her. Laura Pisciano Nunes, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Laura, she came to live in Ireland at the age of 9, and she is a background Brazilian Italian, as I understand it, and she's really well on her way to forging her career in the arts. She's an actor, a singer, a writer, if I'm not mistaken, is certainly well on her way. So I'd like you to listen now to Laura, and she's going to sing or going to say a few words as well. You hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Viva!
I don't know if many of you know the song, but it's very nice. It's like his did. To all his told the truth, no, we didn't like it. You went home, in your fence, by again. You know you go alone. Charm all the people you trade for you meet, but anyway, and I won't make you know that I'm getting free. And I just don't feel like it's so close, just away. Sometimes from I've been talking, but not all that often with you now. I'll be on a boat, on a plane. Always listening, and I'll have a drink and whisper out my window and watch the sunset on the lake. I'm not feeling, but it's okay. It's not just me. I push my head. I love you, I'm sorry. You're the best and you're the worst. It's like a sound. I loved you. It is what it is. I happen to kick the age of curse. That's it to laugh. Whenever I'm sad, I stand and crash. Actually, words drinking amends. It's never end. I'm fucking right. My love is no care about me. You are.
Right. Very good. Right? You know, I'm looking for myself. I wouldn't mind getting into
I think we all wanted to hear more.
so
That was absolutely beautiful. And I think we will hear more. It's wonderful talent. We have a we have a family now, three-generation family of musicians somewhere in the group down there, profiled in the magazine as well. So they're going to take a couple of minutes, obviously, to maybe get a few chairs up here and play for us. So, um, I have a funny feeling Eilish and myself might have had the same tutelage at some point. Somebody I profiled in the magazine last year was Sister Furza Morris. And when I was learning singing from Furza, Sister Furza, there were a lot of names that always popped up, and Irish was one of them. So, of the great singers and musicians of the locality, and she's here with her son and her grandchild and an extended family. Counting how many are going to Libya, Eilish, Maeve, sorry, Maeve, Olivia, and Fergus. Thank you very much. So, and they're going to just play a few tunes for us now to finish up the launch this evening. I hope you've all enjoyed the music, poetry, the fantastic reflection that we had from Sarah and Buckley, and of course Mary herself, and the words to all of you about this magazine. I think we're all going to be very sorry to see it come to an end, because it's incredible to think that there were 5 editions and the number of women whose histories are now in the archives of the local newspaper, but also more importantly in the National Archives. And as an archivist myself, I just know how important that is. So it's just, I think we should, while they're setting up, just give Mary the most incredible round of applause for the work that she has done. Need the microphone to go over here to the musicians where they're sitting for this,
me.
for your live stream.
Not particularly. No, the audio's getting picked up well. Thank you.
You'll still pick it up, yeah?
I imagine so. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I can't really fault. I said this, I want to know, I said, let me hear it. Give me the video of it to see me clearly. You see, I thought, it's only that, it cannot be that, some aspect. Might have seen it, but would be not. Right, sorry, this is all my, and the way it's salmon and blood.
Yeah.
Salmon, and I don't know how to do it. And the bar. I read it. It's all you visual disease. Maybe frame it. Yeah. Everything either kind of vision and sensual or how to use it. I have to be glad we need to see it's like we give an air, but it's a little into there. Some of the fun is bring it up there. So we know this is like to go. It's a treatment. Yeah. It's check. We just do it. Show you it's
First time in the room. That's pretty good.
I broke my this one. I was like, I have a slap. That might take me. I mean, good preference, but just like that. You know, I got out of our this card or not.
Mary. I saw I turned off the mic. I'll switch it back on. Your fans are disappearing while so just say hi to everyone. I turn on. Hey, this okay. Don't drop my laptop.
He said, "Well, I know everybody. You can't see their camera." No, I don't think so. No, not so. Just the camera over there. We're saying, oh yeah, there. Oh, here I am. Oh, it's lovely. So cheers. William. Here, you're ready. We're ready. I'm all right. And now I would like to thank Joan McGrain for outing me. Oh, she did. You can be forgiven though, much time, but she did, and she also complimented you, so it's very well. All right. You were just making an association. I'm sorry. I have a point. I have said you won't know. Now I'm saying this is the trick. This is the goal right here now. Even as you know, this is the goal. This is the husband now. Very much for your very fine work. Thank you, I'm very much for once. We did the do before winter time. David, good night. We really very very David. Sorry. Maybe you should be here. John, they should go. Where should we have to be here? Jump in. They should. They're free. I'm not free. Very good. Ah, I'm strong. Okay. I'm picturing now. I was adjusting it, so it's okay. Yep.
Sorry, finish. Could I just say a huge thank you to Sarah and the staff of the Wool Store? Could I have a round of applause, please? I know I'm going to have a lovely evening after this. Laura, could I just call you up, please? We just want to call Bridge up for a minute. And I want to present you with a bouquet of flowers. The youngest member in the magazine, Laura Cassiano Armines, will just one because the video. Don't take a photo if you don't mind. Did a fantastic job, Rhea. Very grateful. And very finally, I just call on Vera Tierney. If you could present the bouquet of flowers to Sarah and Buckley, please. And thanks so much, Sarah.
It's too hard. They're turn around now.
And that's it. We're over and out, and have a good night, everybody. Thanks a million for coming.
Live streaming coming.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, well, I just want to say to everybody who's online, well, we haven't forgotten you're out there. Don't quite know how many of you are out there, but thank you so much for watching in. I hope you enjoyed all of the music, the poetry, and the song tonight on the launch of Women Who Dared magazine. You've got a lot of reading this weekend, so enjoy. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So,
What did the
women who did